Breaking It Down with Frank MacKay. This is 103.9 LI News Radio.
We'd like to welcome everyone to Breaking It Down. Our very special guest today is the incomparable. He's been around many, many years, and he's still a young guy, Mac Davis. Mac, how are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for the compliment.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, you've had some career, and it's still going. You're still playing. How many shows a year do you like to do?
I don't do a lot of shows. I do charity things. I retired back in, basically in '89 from touring, and I did do a play in New York after that for a year, and then on the road for a year and a half. But other than that, I've been basically retired. I just am writing songs, basically, and I go out and do a showcase now and then in Nashville, and once in a while charity functions and such. But I still keep my chops up.
I thought I saw a movie with you. Did you do something with Ted Nugent a few years ago, a movie?
Not with Ted Nugent, unless he was... I've done a few movies over the years. I did North Dallas 40.
Well, that I know, but I'm saying recently. Did you do something about 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
I did a little thing with... I don't even remember.
Yeah.
A couple little small films, but nothing of interest.
Yeah, but North Dallas 40, let's talk about that a little bit. You did that with Nick Nolte. Were you guys buddies, and are you still in touch?
No, I've actually tried recently to reach Nick and couldn't get a hold of him. And no, I haven't seen him. That's one of the sad things about movies. You become friends with people and you work with them, and about half the time you don't see them again afterwards. I've always been a fan of his, and was at the time, and still am. He's a terrific actor. Well,
you guys combined on a nice movie there. Let's talk about your bread and butter. It's really songwriting, right? From day one, you're a great singer, and you've done just wonderful things. But you started out as a songwriter, and can you tell us about your first gig songwriting?
Well, I've been writing songs since I was old enough to whistle. But I've honed the craft for a long time. I got a job in the record business, and I would send my songs into the company, and I was actually a sales and promotion man in those days for a company called VJ, and who had all the R&B acts at the time, the big ones, and all the big gospel acts. And I'd send songs into them, and I'd record on my little Wallen Sack tape recorder, and they'd tell me to just, keep my day job. And eventually I moved out to California because I got a job with Liberty Records publishing company as a song plugger. And it was during that time I met a fellow named who'd I meet? Billy Strange, who set me up with a meeting with Elvis Presley's people. And next thing you know, I had a song in an Elvis Presley movie, and my career...
In the Ghetto, right?
Was it back in 1968.
Was it In the Ghetto?
No, it was, believe it or not, was A Little Less Conversation.
Ah, okay.
Which became a big hit 34 years later, was remixed, and was used as Nike's World Cup soccer campaign, and became a big hit, international hit, number one in 26, 27 countries. And, but, it did, at the time, it got into the top 60 with Elvis, and he was beginning to move. He wanted to do a comeback special, and he was irritated that the Beatles had become number one, and he wanted to try new things, and I just happened to get in on that bandwagon, and when he decided he wanted to do something different, and that's when In the Ghetto and Don't Cry Daddy and Memories all came about at that time.
Do I remember correctly, did you have something to do with the Sinatras, either Nancy or Frank at some time?
Yeah, I had a signed with Nancy Sinatra's publishing company. It was called B&B Music, which stood for Billy, Nancy, and Boots. And that's basically how I got started. And they were the ones that got me hooked up with Elvis. And I was there for a year with that company, and then moved on.
If you're just tuning in now, Mac Davis, a wonderful, well, he says he's retired, but a wonderful country singer, wonderful singer in general, and certainly a very successful songwriter. I remember watching you, and I don't want to date how old you are here, but I remember being a very small kid, and I'm 47 years old, at watching the Mac Davis TV special. Were you on CBS at the time?
Well, no, I was on NBC for 3 seasons, the Mac Davis show, and it was one of those old-fashioned variety shows where we would bring in different acts of the day, the popular singers and the popular TV stars, and do little crazy sketches with them and sing duets, and it was a fairly successful show. Unfortunately, we were up against Little House on the Prairie, or the Waltons. I forget, one of those Michael Landon gigantic TV hits, and we did that for 2 years, and then we begged them to give us another time slot, so they put us up against Welcome Back, Kotter, and which was also a #1 show, and but we were always a strong #2. We averaged about 15 million viewers, which today would be a monster hit show.
Yeah, way different now. I mean, there's a lot of stations now, but back then it was only the 3 networks, and that was before Fox even. This
is true. So it was a great thing for me. My album sales increased, and I've been a pretty lucky boy, Frank.
Well, you're also a talented boy, and you know that a little bit of luck goes a long way. But if you don't have any talent, you can't sustain it. You know, I guess when you talk about luck, you mentioned a little less conversation. You know, how about that? I mean, you write a song, and then years later it gets picked up in a major commercial, and you know, and not to get too personal here or to ask too much about finances there, but what can something like that mean? A commercial, national commercial with Nike. Financially, is it a big boon? Is it a
well? Yes, it is. It's songwriters. In all honesty, and I hate to sound like an old crank, but songwriters are the lowest guy on the totem pole when it comes to record manufacturers and the music business. You know, we're the guy whose name is in parentheses underneath the singers, and we're just we're the last guys to get paid, and we get the smallest amount of the pie. But when it comes to performance money, Congress some years back granted us the right to get paid for airplay, and whether you're on in a commercial or whether you're being played as part of a top 40 radio station, you're entitled to receive a few pennies every time your record is played. And so, yeah, in the long run, it can be lucrative, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. I tell everybody because I wrote the thing in 1968 or 69, and 34 years later, I still own the song. And when it came out, in fact, I was the last guy to know. Talking about a low guy on the telephone on the totem pole. Yeah. I was the last guy to find out, and when it did, I told my kids, I said, hey, that song you're listening to, your dad wrote that. And they got so excited they couldn't see straight. All of a sudden, I had street cred. So, at any rate, I was still right, though. In fact, I've got a record coming out with Avicii.
That should be nice.
Within the next month or two.
Well, he's red hot right now, Avicii.
Yes, he is, and it's really exciting to watch, and nobody deserves it anymore. He's a great kid. I really like him. Just got lucky enough to get hooked up with him, and we wrote a song called "Addicted to You," which I don't know the exact release date of the single. It's already gone #1 in Australia, and I think in Sweden it's a top 10 record. But looking forward to it. They released a video on it, and it's had about 15 million hits in 2 weeks so on YouTube. So we're kind of excited. Still back in the game.
Yeah. Well, Avicii, forget it. He's red hot. It's not even like he was red hot a couple years ago. He's red hot right now. I mean, just exactly right now. So this is this is a nice, a nice thing to step into. And I mean, does he know your history, Avicii?
He does now. He did. He didn't when we got first hooked up. But in all honesty, I didn't know him either.
Yeah.
And somebody asked if I'd like to. I'll mention his name. He's a great guy named Neil Jacobson, who is an A&R man at Interscope Records. And he said we were playing golf together. And he said, "How would you like to write with Avicii?" And I said, "I'm not sure. Who is he?" And when he told me who he was, I loved the song that he had a hit with called "Levels" at the time.
Yeah.
And I said I'd absolutely like to write with him. And I sat down and wrote a couple of songs, three songs actually with him. One of which hasn't been released yet. It's called "Black and Blue." And Aloe Black is singing on that, who's the same guy who's singing on "Wake Me Up," which is Avicii's current big hit. So at any rate, I'm in the game, and I'm still writing with these kids. I've written with Rivers Cuomo, Weezer, fairly recently, and I'm building a place in Nashville, so I can sit down and co-write with some of the guys there in Nashville.
When you say you're building a place, you're building a home or you're building a studio?
A little of both. It's going to be a home, and I'm going to have not particularly a studio, just a writer's cottage there where I can have people over and we can sit down and write.
Well, let me ask you about that. And just a reminder, if you're just tuning in, a wonderful, wonderful talent here. I'm thrilled, actually, to be having the pleasure to interview Mac Davis. And he has had some career, and it's still going. It's still going strong. Let me just ask you about like technology and so forth. Are you into like Pro Tools? Did you get hooked on that? Or do you have a little studio in your house, or are you just still doing it the old-fashioned way, tape recorder and a digital tape recorder or something?
Well, I do both. You have to be involved with Pro Tools and digital, electronic music now, and because there's so much of it. But I still like, I wish you could still have 45s out there so we could hear a little scratch on a record every now and then. I kind of miss that from the old days.
The warmth.
I hear a band once in a while. I'll go and see a band that's really, really funky, trashy band, and I just love them. And I tell people, you can almost hear the scratches when the band plays. But you have to kind of stretch yourself and learn new stuff. I don't know how to operate Pro Tools, and I don't know how to operate electronic music, but I've sit and watch, and I figured out how to write songs to it, and it's a great experience. I really enjoyed it. I love watching, like Tim Bergling in particular, who is Avicii. That's his real name is Tim. And I watch him do his thing, and it's just amazing how he sits there and he's got a mouse and a computer. And I know there's a lot of hardliners who say, you're putting musicians out of work. But there's room for everybody.
And there's still live performance.
I'm living proof of that if I'm still around.
And look, there's a lot of gigs, live gigs now. People are still getting paid. Nobody's paying to see a machine on stage, So there's still work for drummers out there and bass players and everything else. And you got to do what you have to do. And a guy like Tim Bergling or Avicii, I mean, he grew up with this. I mean, he probably doesn't know.
Generation.
Yeah, he doesn't know a world without Pro Tools.
It is distressful though when you see what's happening with the music business. It's really, and I put business in quotation marks because it's what we used to call the music business has changed drastically, and it's so easy to download stuff and not have to pay for it. And let's face it, our new generation, not just kids and adults alike, trying to get stuff for free. And that's in the process. Songwriters are the guys that we bear the brunt of that. The singers, of course, the entertainers, they can go out and do concerts and make a living. They make the bulk of their income doing shows. Songwriters collect royalties, and unfortunately, we don't make as much as we used to. And it doesn't bother me. Pardon my train of thought here, but I'm going to move on with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me so much because I've been really successful and lucky for a long period of time, and it's not going to starve me. But it affects that guy who's had one hit or one semi-hit and makes just enough money a year to take his family, in an RV and go spend a weekend in Branson, Missouri, or Florida, or wherever. It affects him because that's that money that that he used to get that he's not going to get this year or the next. So it bothers me, and I like to try to stand up for these guys when I can.
No doubt about it.
They deserve to make a living too,
Yeah, I mean it's theft. I mean people don't look at it as theft, but it's theft. And you mentioned Weezer, a guy like the guys in Weezer probably feel they came in at that time when Napster and all that stuff was just coming in, and all the free downloading emerged, and a guy like that or guys like that, I don't know who writes the songs, but those guys probably feel it much worse than someone like yourself. You've had these years of residuals and royalties and things coming in, but I imagine people that came in around that year 2000, on the songwriting end, they're the ones who really feel it. Well,
Rivers Cuomo, who is the lead singer and does most of the writing for Weezer, he took a 2-year hiatus and went back to Harvard to graduate and get his master's degree. He's a bright guy.
Wow.
And he's learned to live with the Internet, and he's made a great career working that Internet. And he has a huge following, and he's brilliant. And I say more power to him. And he's just learned how to adjust to it. But there's a lot of us that haven't figured that out. I'm just fortunate to be riding on Tim Bergling's coattails and have a good enough reputation that some of these guys will sit down and write with me, and they kind of go, "Hey, this guy can actually rhyme." So
yeah.
So I still have, thank God, I still have one foot in the deal.
If you're just tuning in now, Mac Davis, he's certainly a legendary songwriter and singer, and has been around many, many years and has seen many changes in the music business. And when you talk about the Sinatras and the Presleys, they've been part of your life and part of your career, and certainly your early career. When you were writing for Elvis, were you thinking in the back of your mind that this will kind of be acting as a stepping stone, and I'll eventually get my own situation going, and I'll be able to sing and get a record deal on my own? Or were you thinking, hey, this isn't too bad, I'll do a little songwriting and that's fine?
Not really. Yeah, I just was. I was thrilled to get to meet the man. I was thrilled to get to meet Colonel Parker. He was such a legend.
Yeah.
And he actually rubbed my head one time. He said, "You the boy that wrote this song?" This is when they were doing the song "Little Less Conversation." I got invited to the movie set to watch them loop it into the movie. And Colonel Parker was sitting there surrounded by the Memphis Mafia, and he says, "You the boy that wrote this song?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Come over here and let me rub that curly head of yours." And I said, "Excuse me?" And the Memphis Mafia guys looked at me and nodded and said, "Yeah, do it." So I went over and bent over, and he rubbed my head. He said, "Now you go tell everybody that Colonel Parker rubbed your head. You're going to be a star." And that was the furthest thing from my mind at the time. I was just thrilled to be hanging with Elvis and the Colonel. And it was sometime down the road that I met a fellow who introduced me to Clive Davis, and I went to Clive's bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel and sat and sang songs for him, just me and a guitar. And he signed me on the spot, signed me to Columbia Records, and just things took off from there. And, of course, it was a different time. I had to put out 3 albums before I got a hit. They don't do that anymore. If your first CD doesn't sell half a million copies, they drop you from the label.
Yeah, forget it. You don't get those chances.
Yeah, that's the way it works today.
Do you remember what songs you played for Clive?
Yeah, I played a song called "Whoever Finds This, I Love You," which ended up being my first single, and I think I played "I Believe in Music" for him, which was not on my first album.
Why did you choose not to? I mean, that became really your signature song. Why did that not make it to the first album?
Well, it was just it had already been recorded by a group called Gallery, and I didn't want to step on that. And
okay, it was by design. It wasn't like they didn't think it was a
well,
hit.
no, I don't. I really honestly can't say. I'm not. I'm guessing at that, but I know that I had written a song that I sang for Clive called "Watching Scotty Grow," and my producer of the first album, Jerry Fuller, I played it for him, and he said, that sounds like that's like a Bobby Goldsboro song."
Yeah.
And I said, okay, and so we didn't cut it, but I did send it to Bobby Goldsboro, and he had a number 2 record with it. Didn't quite make number 1, but he had just come off the record "Honey," which was a huge number 1 hit, and then "Watching Scotty Grow" went to number 2.
Hey, Mac, we're coming up on a break. Do we have you for another segment?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. We're going to have a quick break here. Mac Davis is our guest, and we'll be right back with the incomparable Mac Davis.
Breaking It Down with Frank MacKay. This is 103.9 LI News Radio.
And we're back with Mac Davis. He is our very special guest today, singer-songwriter Mac Davis. And for those of you who don't know who he is, just Google him, and you'll see the amount of hits. Do you have any idea at how many top 40 hits you've written?
I don't. I honestly don't.
Wow, that must be a good feeling, not knowing.
I've had, well, some of them, I got to the point where I just, I counted up my top 10s. I think I had about 11 top 10s, but some got in the top 40 Billboard, some were in Cashbox, which is not around anymore. Some were adult, contemporary, and, just different things. So I've never really tried to keep track of stuff like that. If you clutter your head up with stuff like that, you ain't got room for new songs in there. So, honestly, I just try to keep up with the times and move forward.
Before the break, we were talking about Clive Davis and just playing the songs for it. It was just you and a guitar and Clive Davis.
Yeah.
That's just
what when I first started. When I started getting recognized, I met my manager, a fellow named Sandy Gallen, who is he's retired now, but he's a wonderful guy and a wonderful manager, and he got me on the Tonight Show, and also booked me for just a whole string of college concerts, and they patted each other on the back. Doing the college concerts helped me get on the Tonight Show, and the Tonight Show helped me get more college concerts, and trying to build an audience back then. And I hadn't had a hit as an artist yet, but I'd had all these hits as a writer, and that's what the colleges wanted at that time, was the singer-songwriters. This was back in 69, 70, 71. And I just started doing these college concerts, and Johnny started putting me on the Carson Show, and the next thing you know, I started getting airplay. I had a kind of a country hit on "Whoever Finds This, I Love You," which, funny, that song came from a conversation with Nancy Sinatra. I'm going to sidestep for a second and tell it. It's a good story. The song, she had told me that she once, when she was married to Tommy Sands, that she left a note under his pillow with a birthday present, and the note said, "Whoever finds this, I love you." And I thought, what a wonderful idea for a song. So I came up with this story of a little orphan girl and in an orphanage, and she's throwing notes out the window, and an old man finds one of the notes, and they become friends talking through the fence and everything, and they help each other through some rough times. And then the old man, unfortunately, passes away, and she starts throwing notes out the window again. Pretty sad.
Yeah.
But I was the king of sad songs at the time.
Yeah.
But it turned out that there actually was a story in Reader's Digest way back in those days about that something like that really happened. And I would have been 2 or 3 years old when that article came out.
Yeah.
But for some reason or another, I came up with a story that was almost identical to what really happened. And at any rate, that was my first semi-hit that I had, and that was one of the songs I played for Clive in those days.
You remember and I hate to even talk about finances, it's so personal, but do you remember what your first big check was like when you either from a song, that song? How about for that song?
Absolutely, I remember.
What was
it? I remember my first check was about $1.49, and I cashed it and paid for my laundry with it.
No kidding.
When I got the big check, it came in and it had Elvis Presley's picture on it. And I was still depositing my little paychecks. I was making $250 a week, minus taxes.
That's real money back then. That's good stuff.
Well, I was also paying out about half of it in alimony and child support.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I was struggling, but I was depositing that same check every week in the same bank, and I got a check for about around $140,000 from Elvis Presley music out of nowhere. And I had never, the most I had ever made in my life was $12,500 a year. And all of a sudden I had this humongous check, and I went to the bank, and it had Elvis's picture on the check. That was the Colonel's work. And I went to deposit it, and I said, I want you to put this in my account and give me a cashier's check for $10,000 because I had a red Mercedes already staked out in Alhambra out here in California, and I had color TVs had gone on sale, and I had never owned a color TV. So the look on this cashier's face was just unbelievable. I wish they had cell cameras then. I would have taken a picture of it. And she had to go back and go through a whole bunch of rigmarole with her manager, and the manager had to go to her supervisor, and next thing you know, they figured it was legitimate, and I got a cashier's check, and I went out to Alhambra, and I bought me a red Mercedes 69 280 SL convertible.
Yeah, it'd probably be worth something right now, too, if you had it.
Oh, well, I still have it. I gave it to my son. I kept it for 34 years, and I ended up giving it to my oldest son, Scotty, who I wrote Watching Scotty Grow about. Yeah. And in fact, I call that my In the Ghetto car. I had license plates on it that said In the Ghetto.
No kidding.
Gave that to him, and I bought a new car with some of the money that I made off the re-release of A Little Less Conversation. I bought a nice little sports car and put Thanks Elvis license plates on it. THXLVIS.
If you're just tuning in.
But I kept that car for all those years, and it's still just beautiful. It's cherry. It's a great little car.
Well, let me just remind people who are driving in their cars listening to this. You're listening to the voice of Mac Davis, a legendary songwriter and singer. Mac Davis had so many hits and has worked with so many people over the years. We're thrilled to have him. Mac, go back to that. The second check you got, same thing, a little picture of Elvis on it?
Well, the first thing I did after I bought the car was get a business manager. I got some legal help because I had no idea what was going to happen. And at that time, I ended up having to sign a check to income taxes that was well over 3 years' salary that I had made prior to that.
Yeah.
And it was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, was to try to sign that check. I remember my hand was shaking so bad I couldn't hardly write my name. I looked like a 10-year-old wrote my name on that check. But no, I don't remember what the second check was. I just remember.
Well, I meant, did you have a little picture of Elvis on that too? Was that like a trademark when you got a check from Elvis? As a little
Those
picture?
checks started going directly to my business manager at that point. I never paid any attention to them. I read my statements and all, but I really don't know. I'm sure that some of the checks did, but most those publishing companies get sold and swapped around, and the same publisher, Elvis Presley Music, sold the song to another publisher, and that publisher eventually sold it to another one, and my checks come from all different kinds of people now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's some story. I mean, you basically went to the mailbox.
Went to the mailbox and opened up the mailbox, and there was this huge check with Elvis Presley's picture on it.
It's just unreal.
Elvis Presley Music.
That's
And
unreal.
his ASCAP company was called Gladys Music. And
After
he
his
split
mom.
publishing with different artists. If I co-wrote anything, and that was his mom's name, and it would be Elvis Presley Music / Gladys Music for the ASCAP.
How close did you get to Elvis?
Not real close. I was at his home a few times. I was in his dressing room a few times, and in Las Vegas, in his suite a few times. But I really didn't hang with him. We lived in different parts of the country, and when he was living out here in L.A., I was here, but Bel Air was like another country to me.
Mm.
I eventually ended up living in Bel Air for 31 years, but this was well after Elvis was gone. So, but I always felt kind of intimidated by the Memphis Mafia, but the one or two times that, because they were just leaning on every word, you didn't dare say the wrong thing, and I always felt like an outsider until I got alone with him a few times at his home, and once at the Memphian Theater, the old legendary theater that he used to rent for all his friends and after hours. And I sat with him and watched the movie with him, and he was like a big old kid. He never got past 19. He was a very friendly, very happy-go-lucky prankster, easy laugh. Loved a good joke, a good story, and I really enjoyed being around him. He was a great guy.
Who were some of the other people that you hung out with? I don't know if I just remember this, just selective memory here, but were guys like Glenn Campbell and Chris Christopherson, were they friends of yours?
Well, Chris and I met early on in his career, and then we really didn't see each other. Our paths would cross at different award shows or whatever, but we never did become real friendly, and I admire him greatly. He's a great songwriter. Glenn and I were friends. I wrote several songs for Glenn. I wrote the song score for his only starring role, his first and last starring role, which was Norwood. Mm. And I had one hit that came out of it called Everything a Man Could Ever Need. And I had another song that gained some notoriety and actually became the name of my publishing company, called I'll Paint You a Song. And I named my publishing company Song Painter after that. And my first album was named Song Painter. But I didn't really hang with a lot of guys. Played a little golf with Glenn once in a while, but we weren't big buddies.
I think people got the impression that you were a party guy. You had that look to you. You're a handsome young guy, and you had the beads and the and the shirts, and you look like a bachelor. You look like a guy that just enjoyed the ladies and enjoyed having a good time. And and you just mentioned about having that red Mercedes. You seem like that type of guy. That had a good time. But at the same time,
I had a good time. But
yeah.
That was part. That image was part of being part of the '70s. Everybody had their shirt unbuttoned down to the navel just about, and I did wear a lot of turquoise belts. I wore a lot of cowboy. I was always jeans and jean jacket and that kind of thing, and I had a turquoise belt that I would wear. Not a lot of beads. I wasn't a beads guy. In fact,
No.
I don't think I ever wore a bead.
Yeah, well, beads. I thought you had some Pookie beads or something at one point. But
No, it wasn't me.
that wasn't you. But how much of that was input from the managers and Clive Davis and the marketing people there? Did you get input from them on that? Did they say, "Hey, Mac, look, you gotta look like this a little. You gotta start doing this a little more"? Did you get a lot of that?
No, not really. Yeah, I did in a way. My manager liked that look, and it was, But when I got on television, we went to basically the suits and tailored stuff. Jeans that fit real tight, and shirts that matched, and wardrobe guys. Wardrobe guys are wardrobe guys. They tell you how to act, what to do, and they're your boss. Until you get away from the TV screen, and then you throw your jeans back on. I used to call it my songwriter suit. In fact, one of the biggest laughs I ever got on Johnny Carson's show was when they first came out to Los Angeles. They called me at the last minute and asked me if I would come and do the show because somebody had canceled on them. And I just had my, jeans and jean jacket, my songwriter suit, basically. And I went straight over there, and that's what I wore. And when I got on the show, after my performance, Johnny called me over to the couch, and he said, "Well, it was awful nice of you to dress up for our debut here in California." I said, "Well, my manager told me to wear the blue suit." And it cracked Johnny up. And, anytime you crack Johnny up, well, everybody else would laugh. Everybody would watch Johnny. If he laughed, everybody laughed.
Yeah. No doubt about that.
But that was my standard, really. I did college concerts for years in the jean jacket and jeans, faded jeans, and old rough-out cowboy boots. But when I'd go to play Vegas, I tried to show a little class in the earlier years, and I wore suits. I even wore tuxedos for a while. But did a lot of production numbers, and we had costuming for that. And, gosh, I'm talking about stuff here that just doesn't happen anymore.
No.
In Las Vegas, it's changed so much.
Well, that's for sure. But you're listening, if you're just tuning in now or if you've been listening for a while, Mac Davis has seen a little bit of everything in the music business, in the entertainment business, and we're speaking to him at this point, and he is a singer extraordinaire and certainly songwriter beyond compare, and still making bucks off of all those hits in the past. But he's also an actor, and you did North Dallas 40. Do you consider yourself an actor?
Not really. I never acted before I did that movie, and I got lucky. It was a movie about football, and I could throw a football well enough to get by with it as an actor, and without a stunt man. But the part also was a Texas guy. It was kind of it was a takeoff on Don Meredith. He was the inspiration for the part that I played. And so I didn't have to worry about accents or anything. I just went in there and did my lines with Nick Nolte, who was a very generous actor, and we wrote a lot of our stuff. The director allowed me to use a lot of old West Texas sayings and euphemisms, or whatever you want to call them, which it worked in the movie, and it helped me feel comfortable as an actor. And so later on, I did some other movies that I wish I hadn't done. I was kind of a fair-haired boy there for a while because I didn't get any bad reviews for the movie. I got mostly glowing reviews. For a rookie, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I took I was offered some big money to do a couple of starring roles. I took the money and ran, did the movies, and found out that I wasn't a movie star. I was not really a leading man. I couldn't carry a picture. And it was a real comeuppance for me, and I understood that, and still do. The checks didn't bounce, though. That's the way I look at it.
Now, I have 4 kids, and I watch a lot of shows with them, and one of them's King of the Hill. Did I see you on that? Well, it's a voice. It's an animated show. But
yeah, I've done a few of those. For a while, I was kind of their utility guy. I played the sheriff, and I played football coach, and I only did a few of them though, and it turned out it's a real elite bunch that gets to do these things on a regular basis and gets billing and makes money off of it. Basically, I was working for scale. I was just wanted to, it was fun. It sounded like something fun to do, and got me away from the golf course for a while and away from my guitar for a while. And so I did some of that, but I only did a few.
Hey, Tom Petty did it for a while, the same show.
Well, Tom did one that I was on. He was on the same show, but we never saw each other. I did my part and left, and he did his.
I was a football coach. I played him like he had a broken nose.
Yeah. Oh, right. No kidding. Yeah, that's.
And sheriff, I was one of these guys that talk like this.
It's such an elite bunch. Trying to break into that, I've always wanted to do voiceover and do one of these movies, like an animated movie, but just never did happen for me. So, not the end of the world.
Well, I tell my kids, and I have two little guys that act, and they get quite a bit of work. I tell them, look, if you could ever hand pick what you're going to do when you get older, if you could become a voice actor, you got it made, because you get to have a private life. You don't have to walk into a supermarket and have to stop and talk to everybody that you don't know and all this. And at the same time, you can make a decent amount of bucks. I mean, these guys make a lot of money.
Absolutely. I'm so I am real grateful for my anonymity right now. I moved at one point. I had a house right down the street. A couple of really big stars who were married to each other, and they were just one door down. And we had the paparazzi parked in front of our house across the street, and it's just become a dog-eat-dog, nasty business. I don't like it. I don't like what they do. I don't like the way they treat people. And they try to get people, they push people's buttons, try to get them to throw a punch at them or something so they can sell the picture, and or even get a lawsuit against them. It's I really don't like what it's become.
And nowadays, everybody's a potential paparazzi or whatever, paparazzi.
With the cell phone.
With the cell phone. Those cell phones came out, and that's it. We have about a minute and a half left with Mac Davis, a wonderful songwriter, wonderful singer-songwriter, and certainly, as you heard here, he's done his share of acting and voice acting. What's next? You mentioned Avicii. What can you tell us in the last minute that your next year looks like?
Well, it's just going to be the same deal. I'm writing songs. I'm finishing up my little house in Nashville, and I'm really looking forward to going down there and immersing myself in the music business there and making some new friends. And it's a great place, kind of a central place, a wonderful place to live. And just looking forward to living the good life comfortably. I'm 72 years old now, and I'm happy that I've still got one foot in the business, and at the same time, I'm happy that I can sit back and relax and not have to worry about where my next meal's coming from, which is a lot more than I can say. For a lot of guys that are struggling out there that have a lot of talent. I wish them all the best. I hope we can all just share in it and live gracefully and happily ever on after.
Mac Davis, everyone, has been our very, very special guest. Is there a website, or do you tweet, or do you do anything like that?
I do none of that stuff, and I'm just proud of myself that I've stayed out of that. I treasure my anonymity right now.
Mac Davis has been our very special guest. You've been very gracious with your time here, Mac, and thanks for getting up and chatting with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Frank.
Mac Davis, everyone, has been our very special guest. We'll be back next week on Breaking It Down.